Paul, you are at the Cintas Center. Xavier is practicing currently before they leave to Athens later today, right? I assume they are headed out on a flight later this afternoon. Kind of give us the vibes around the Cintas Center, because I think people are kind of talking about what's should Xavier be playing in this thing? Are guys looking to enter the transfer portal? Are they more worried about their next move, or are they focused on the task at hand? And I was just talking about the opportunity for Quincy Oliveri. Seems like one he's very excited about. What are the general vibes around the Cintas Center today?
Yeah, I mean, look, nobody's happy that they aren't playing in the NCAA tournament, right? Everybody wants to play in the NCAA tournament, but the reality is they're not there, and they're playing in the NIT, and they're making the most of the situation. They're traveling down to Georgia later today. So they'll be down there. They'll play tomorrow night. Look, Rick, you and I both know the NIT is not the most ideal situation here, but like I said, they're not going to sit out. I was interested last week or the week before when we had kind of started to talk about, is the NIT a possibility? Is this something you guys would be interested in? And immediately the answer was, yeah, we're going to take the opportunity to play more basketball. There was, over the last 10 days or so, there was no doubt in my mind that Xavier was going to accept the bid if they were given one. And then last night, with all the Big East teams that were left out, you're thinking, are they even going to get a bid in? And then several teams decline. I don't think if all of those teams had accepted, Xavier would have been in the field, but because they didn't decline, here we are, then Xavier gets to play some more basketball. So Xavier will go on the road. If Wake Forest wins, Xavier will go on the road again. I don't think Xavier can play another. I guess if they played App State, if App State beat Wake Forest, that game could be here, I think. Yeah, I would say, just to answer your question, it's more basketball, and I don't think there's anything more than that. I don't really know, though. You may have a better idea than me. I don't anticipate players sitting out of the tournament. I don't see that happening. But I also, to answer the question that, last night on the Spaces, and everybody's getting asked a million times, the NIT is not hampering the transfer portal. And I'm sure you've talked about that already. I didn't hear your intro, so I don't want to repeat if you did. But just to reiterate from my perspective, this coaching staff is very organized. They are very on track. The NIT is not going to take away from anything that they're trying to accomplish in the portal. The one thing that I am a little interested in that I don't know the answer to is how the NIT will affect the portal with guys that, maybe, let's say, aren't sitting out, but go and transfer anyway at the end of the season, and they were assuming that they might, a surprise transfer. I don't know how that would play out, but either way.
Meaning what? Someone who wasn't thinking about transfer, something may happen in the NIT that would lead them to transfer?
No. I'm saying we're sitting here right now on Monday, and let's say the coaching staff is expecting this player to come back next year, and they're handling the next week in the portal as if they're coming back next year, and then they find out, oh, I actually want to go into the portal. That maybe that is the drawback, but I don't even know. I haven't talked to them enough to know the dynamics of that. I truly don't think that the NIT is affecting next year's team. You can't convince me of that.
Yeah. I mean, I get that point of it, and I agree with you that I don't think it's like a major setback. These coaches have been multitasking their entire careers. Like this whole transfer portal starting the day after Selection Sunday is a new concept. They've been used to coaching and recruiting throughout their entire season and all of that stuff. So it's not going to be impossible for them to navigate. At the same time, the point you just brought up is a worthwhile one. And that's why some teams are going to decline bids to the NIT. And I mentioned that, Paul, the NCAA has de-emphasized tournaments like this by opening the transfer portal the day after Selection Sunday. And so some teams are going to want to get their ducks in a row. They are going to want to know about the unknowns that are about to occur, which means players leaving that they may not know about, or other guys they may have an opportunity to get that because your roster may look a certain way when all these guys are still on it, but some of those guys may be leaving. They may not actually be here in 2 weeks. And so there may be another guy in the portal who looks at your team and says, well, they don't have spots available for me. They have too many guys at my position. So there are reasons to decline the bid that are worthwhile, in my opinion. And that's what I was talking about. I see both sides of it. It's like, I don't think it's going to hamper Xavier necessarily, but I also understand the coaches who are like, we're just going to move on. I mean, this team isn't the same team we're playing with next year anyways. And I think that used to be one of the big advantages of the NIT was hey, we're trying to play for something bigger towards next year. We're trying to grow this thing for next year. But with the way the transfer portal works now and teams are so fluid from year to year, I think it's hard to really build on something from an NIT run like Xavier did 2 years ago.
I fully agree on that. I think that run in 2022 was very different than what you see here in 2024, just in the sense of the potential roster turnover that we're going to have. I mean, this team is going to look so different in the 24-25 season as opposed to 22, where you knew that a lot of those guys were going to come back, or at least you thought that a lot of those guys were going to come back. And Tim's question here, does playing in the NIT give coaches one last opportunity to evaluate their teams for who will or will not be coming back next year, or are those decisions already made? The one way I would answer that question, Rick, I'll be very interested to see how they handle two people in the NIT, Lazar and Kachi. Yeah. I think those are my two guys that, and again, hopefully I'm not repeating anything you said in the beginning, but I think from where Lazar was 3 weeks ago, where I think a lot of fans had thought, oh, well, it's a foregone conclusion that he's transferring, he's gone, don't expect to see him on the team next year. Now, all of a sudden, you're 3 weeks past that. He's played 33 minutes in consecutive games. He's shown at least promise. I'm not going to say that he was the best player on the floor by any means, but he's at least shown some growth that you wish you would have seen earlier in the season. But now you go out there and you have one more opportunity against a Georgia team that, quite frankly, is not a good basketball team right now. Right now, at least. Like, they did not close the season strong. They were great in the beginning of the year, had a fantastic non-conference. They were horrific in January and February leading into March. Xavier probably should win this game tomorrow. So you get, maybe two opportunities at least to see Lazar and a guy like Kachi play again. Yeah, I think that is a major benefit to these two games, assuming they play them.
From the coach's perspective, I would imagine they have a pretty good feel for what they want to happen going into the offseason. But I would tell you, I've talked to direct sources involved with different rosters, and Xavier's specifically, but also other teams. And I've had the same source give me completely conflicting information from 1 day to 2 days later on guys about whether they're going to be there next year or not, right? So like there are unknowns that are about to occur. And from a fan's perspective, if I'm just looking at it, knowing nothing other than what we've seen so far this year on the court, I don't know. I'm not even sure exactly how I feel about the Lazar Djokovic and Kachi Enze situation, where they fit in going forward, whether they should be back or not, how they fit in the plans. So from a fan's perspective, I think it's worthwhile watching those two guys more. I think you hit the nail on the head with those two. I'm fascinated to watch those two and Trey Green.
Yeah, I think it's funny when we talked about, the Sean Miller situation a couple of weeks ago, and then you talk about, you're good. You talk about that a couple of weeks ago, and then you talk about, these guys in the transfer portal. It's just like, even though you're around the team and you're here all the day, all the time, every day and everything, you have no feel, you have no idea for where these guys are going to go or what they're going to do and what decisions are going to be made. It's just the reality of the situation. It changes every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Paul, we'll wrap it up with this. I'm about to bring in Jordan Hill from our Georgia site. But Johnny asked, would a run in the NIT impact anyone's decision to go or not go into the portal? I dropped out for a moment, so sorry if you already referenced that. We didn't really talk about this yet. But Paul, I don't think it's really going to change anyone's mind. I mean, the only way you could maybe see that happening is if one of these young guys was maybe on the fence about whether or not they're coming back, has a great run in the NIT, and maybe that encourages them to feel good about the situation. But that's the only argument I could really see being made about.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly have nothing else to add to that, because I think you're spot on. The sample size here, I mean, Xavier could lose tomorrow. They could win the whole thing. You have no idea what you're going to get. I think guys' decisions are probably pretty much already made.
I would agree. All right, Paul, thanks so much for checking in from the Cintas Center. And are you making the trip to Athens?
I'm not. I will not be down there. I will be this weekend. I'll be with Marquette on behalf of the Big East.
Okay.
So I don't know what they're, if Wake Forest wins, I don't know if they would go straight from there to Wake Forest. It's just the logistics there were a little much. So I'll be in Indianapolis this weekend with the Golden Eagles Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's the commitment. But obviously with this, I'll be watching.
All right, perfect. Well, Paul, thanks for checking in from the Cintas Center. Really appreciate it.
Yep. See ya.